and welcome to City Pulse, an advocacy program brought to you by Housing TV Africa in collaboration with the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners, a distinguished urban planning association recognized in Nigeria and globally. I am Oburabi Omubo. Today we turn our focus to a critical issue that affects the health and dignity of countless Nigerians, the sanitation crisis in Abuja's informal settlement. Poor sewage systems have left residents exposed to untreated wastewater, creating an alarming health risk and environmental challenge. How did we get here, and what solutions can we pursue to ensure a cleaner and healthier future? We'll find out in today's discussion. We'll be joined by two experts to discuss how we can tackle this pressing issue. Stay tuned.
Join us on a captivating experience through the dynamic world of town planning in Nigeria as we delve into the visionary projects and insights of top experts, witnessing the remarkable transformation of spaces into extraordinary communities. Immerse yourself in engaging discussions with leading town planning professionals as they address critical issues and offer innovative solutions to empower communities. Experience the pulse of the cities of tomorrow on City Pulse, a weekly television program presented by the National Institute of Town Planners. Gain exclusive behind-the-scenes looks and discover groundbreaking strategies shaping the urban landscape. Don't miss a beat. Showing weekly on Housing TV Africa. Star Times Channel 149.
Welcome back. You're watching City Pulse on Housing TV Africa. Our guests for today are town planners. Samson Olusegun, a town planner specialized in housing and urban regeneration, and town planner Theophilus Usman Lewis, a town planner specialized in environmental management. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for joining us. It's an honor to have you here. So let's dive right into it. So I want to get started with, if you notice, poor sewage systems are a common sight across FCT in informal settlements in the FCT. So what would you say are the primary factors contributing to this crisis? What are the causes of this issue?
Okay, so informal settlements are not necessarily slums.
Okay.
Depending on the context and the factors that contribute to these informal settlements, they can now be slums.
Okay.
Your villages are informal settlements because they are not captured within the formalized urban planning regulations and systems. Now, an informal settlement within a city or an urban area is likely to be a slum. Now, the factors that contribute to a poor sewage system is one, the condition of housing. How are the houses built? One, it is likely that some of these houses don't even have toilet facilities, or they are built outside of the habitable rooms and all of that. So most of them are not even having proper, say, septic tanks and all of that. So they channel their wastewater onto the street, just exposed.
Yeah.
So these are the factors. One, because it is not a formal environment, the infrastructure that will have come in to support the housing unit is absent. People are building safe for the primary reason to just live. So the consideration of sewage is an afterthought. It is not a consideration in the primary development of the housing unit. So you have a case of open defecation, especially where you don't even have the toilets. You have a case of indiscriminate discharge of this wastewater and sewage. So these are the factors that are contributing to the whole sewage crisis we have in our informal settlements within the city of FCT.
Okay, so you're saying that the major factor is when the houses are being built, the sewage plan is not put into consideration. Their focus is just on getting a place to live. So you're saying that the landlords, the housing developers in that areas are the ones that are the major contributors to this problem. But we can see that some houses in those areas actually have proper sewage systems. Not all, but there are some houses. So what differentiates those houses that has proper sewage systems and the ones that don't have? because they are living in the same environment, and you say that the environment is impossible to have those necessary infrastructure to make proper sewage systems. So I want to ask, what is the difference between houses in that same area that are able to build a proper sewage system with the right infrastructure? They're not even more wealthier than the other person, but you see a large number of them still doing it this way. Is it a lack of information, or they just don't care, or what?
I would say the issues are more socio-cultural than economic.
Okay.
If I don't see the need for toilet facilities in my apartment, that's my own choice, because there are no standards that mandate me to provide these things. Also, some of these houses are built by absentee landlords, so they build to maximize profit. And given that they don't have secure tenure, they're building in such a way that even if a day comes where eviction has to happen, what we know as demolition, their losses are less.
Okay.
So they can build for a time frame of say 5-10 years, make up their money. So the building, who is building first? An owner-occupier is likely to build for comfort and for their own convenience. An absentee landlord, or someone who doesn't even see the need for toilet facilities, will most likely not include it in their own building, because it affects the bottom line. So it's a matter of taste, then who is living in, and also what is the person's understanding of this. Because the challenge is, if someone doesn't see the challenge of, say, poor sewage, they can't address it themselves. If you go to most of these areas, they don't even realize that the poor sewage is a challenge. When you ask most respondents in these areas, they tell you about schools, they don't have water and all of that, but they really talk about the sewage system. But this is what affects your life the most. You lose hours to sickness, the sicknesses that affect your children and yourself: malaria, cholera, diarrhea, typhoid. These are sanitation related diseases. So it means that if we're able to solve this sanitation issue by providing sewage in our homes, connecting them and ensuring that they are well channeled out of the housing environment into a proper channel, we will have reduced the health risks that we face within these environments.
Okay. Thank you so much for that insight. Thank you so much. We're going to go over to the solutions very soon, but I want Town Planner Theophilus to elaborate a little bit on the risk. You already started mentioning the health risk, so I want you to elaborate more on the immediate and long-term risk residents living under these conditions can be exposed to.
Thank you very much for that question. First and foremost, we are the ones that see it as a risk. Most of the people living in this kind of conditions are even oblivious of the fact that they are surrounded by risks of sewage environment, sewage infested environment. I will break it down from an environmental perspective. The sewage we know is the one we see is kind of a mix of the gray and dark sewage. These are the two subcategories. There is the gray sewage that comes from the kitchen and probably the bathrooms. Then there is the black sewage that comes from the toilets that carries human waste. What we usually see within these environments are sometimes a mixture of both. And this is how it can affect. Now, let's start from air quality. This sewage they are associated with foul smell. So that's to tell you that the air quality is being affected. And the risks for this is kind of insidious, because you don't see the immediate effect. It matures over a long time. So the people are susceptible to air poisoning, where the air quality is bad and you keep on inhaling this thing within the number of years you live with it. You live there. And sometimes, because of the congestion, you're even very close. So from your window, when you open the window, the stench comes in. So it's putting you at risk when it comes to air quality. Let's talk about water. These sewage are usually, most times they are stagnant. It's even worse during the rainy season. Now, if you look at the description of this kind of environments, they are kind of congested and they don't have access to the pipe-borne water that most of us enjoy. They all depend on underground water. Now, in an environment where you have sewage and people depending on groundwater, what does that tell you? After a while, you see that this sewage would seep into the underground water, and this is what people take and they bathe with it, they ingest it, and so on. In some cases, you find out that a well is located just within 2 meters from a stagnant sewage.
Yeah.
And then when it's the rainy season, this sewage is being transported rapidly to different sources. So you don't even know where the end point is. Someone would be drinking it, someone will be using it for agriculture and so. So that's how it poisons the water bodies. Then lastly, let's talk about soil quality. That's another component from the environmental perspective. For the fact that you have sewage, what it's telling you is that the moisture content of the soil will be very, very high. I don't know if you notice building construction, you notice that they always do foundation with damp-proof course or damp-proof membrane. That's to prevent moisture content from going into the building. But if you look at the kind of houses developed in this area, you don't see anything like damp-proof course or damp-proof membrane. And then it begins to affect the housing. From there you see dampness and then cracking, and God forbid one day the building collapse on. So that's the way it can affect. So people don't see it, they don't see the immediate effects of having sewage around. But these are some of the risks that can be that you can get from having or living within this kind of environments.
Thank you so much, Town Planner Theophilus, for opening our eyes to the risk from air to water to even the soil to even the houses. Wow. Thank you so much. So we're going to take a pause here, and when we return, we're going to talk about the solutions. So stay tuned.
Visit Housing TV Africa on YouTube and click on the subscribe button. Subscribe to Housing TV Africa to stay updated on latest happenings in Nigeria's housing sector. Follow our social media pages, like and share our posts on Facebook, Housing TV Africa, on Twitter, Housing TV Africa, Instagram, Housing TV Africa. Join the conversation and keep up with latest housing updates.
Welcome back to City Pulse on Housing TV Africa. I still have Town Planner Samson Olusegun and Town Planner Theophilus Usman Lewis. Before the break, we discussed the causes and the risk of Abuja sanitation crisis. Now, let's explore potential solutions. So, Town Planner Samson, I want to ask, what role can urban planners play in designing affordable and effective systems for informal settlements or slums in the FCT?
Okay, we have established that informal settlements are areas without plans.
Yes.
The first thing is prevention. We shouldn't be in a situation where you have urban residents who do not have adequate housing and only have to resort to informal settlements. Currently, we are about 50% urban in Nigeria. Yeah. The urban population is 50% of the total population.
Wow.
By 2050, it will be 70%. Now, the government knows this, urban planners know this. What do we need to do to ensure that before Nigeria grows to the level where 70% of its residents will be in cities, we need to plan to ensure that they are not having to stay in slums because we did not prepare adequately to house them in proper housing conditions. So the first thing, we need to prevent the proliferation of informal settlements in our cities. Now, for what is existing, we need to ensure that we do what we call urban regeneration. I don't want to call it urban renewal because it is mostly associated with demolitions. Urban regeneration is to help a city or an environment that is decaying to breathe life back into it. in cases where already the environment started with planlessness, the idea is to bring some form of sanity. Of course, you have to ensure that it is a participatory urban system where you call in these people who live in these slums. Let them understand what the challenge is, the risks that continuing in that direction poses to them, both the short and the long term, as my colleague has said, the air quality, the water quality, the soil quality, and how it affects their quality of life. Because housing is not just about the housing unit, it's about the entire environment in which that housing unit exists. So without a proper sewage system, this situation is going to continue. It is difficult to say, now start building new toilets. But the UN has some guidelines on how to improve this environment. First, ensure that you channel your drains. They might be, just ensure that they are not exposed. Control them in such a way that there's a system that at least empties out this wastewater. Wastewater including human waste, your domestic use, water and all of that. Ensure that there's a way to channel them out of your environment. That's the first step. The next step is, let's say, for areas where people don't even have toilet facilities, how about the government comes in, or with some initiatives, in order to reduce open defecation, provide public toilets in some of these areas. It will reduce open defecation, because yes, you can talk about the drains from individual houses, but open defecation you can't control because you don't decide where the person decides to, take a go. So you ensure that if you have public toilets, and of course subsidize, because in the environment it's mostly about the urban poor. So paying for some of these services, if they are too pricey, might be difficult. Your goal is to reduce sanitation issues, so you have to make it as affordable as possible. So provide public toilets, right? Now, aside that, we can also try to ensure that people don't have to live in slums. We talked about it earlier, plan for people.
Yeah.
But then, what is the policy on slums in Nigeria? For years, we've heard governments announce urban renewal programs. They come in, build one road, and urban renewal has been done. You have to improve this environment. You don't, at the moment, we have a housing deficit of about 28 million houses in Nigeria. Yeah. And that was some data about a year or two ago. You can't, at the moment, provide 28 million houses. The budget for this year for housing is a paltry sum of about, I think, 250 or 500 billion. Yeah. To break it down into the number of houses that can build, even with the Renewed Hope initiative, means that it will take us centuries to bridge the gap we currently have. So, but this is the housing these people have now. You can't talk about chasing them because there's no other option. So improve the current environment they're in. Bring in the facilities they need. Possibly with what we call integration. You can integrate some of these settlements, ensuring that they meet some criteria, ensure that they have access and all that, and grant title. It's been done in other parts of the world. And an interesting study, Habitat International did a study on a slum and saw that for every $1 the government invested, the residents invested $8. So for every one, it was a ratio of 1 to 8. So if the government brought in $1 to improve the environment, the people themselves brought in $8. And why? They had security of tenure. Because, as I said earlier, some people will build with the envisioning that in 5 years I might lose this. So I'm not going to build anything permanent because I know that, yes, I'm not having title to this land. So I have to build with the mindset that I might leave soon. But when you have title, some people will by themselves bring down their houses. Everyone knows what is good. But sometimes you do what you can do. And the government has failed its citizens, the urban residents, by not providing for their housing. Now they have tried to help themselves. The only thing government can do is improve the current stock while it is finding ways to ensure that it doesn't continue the mistake it is making now. So first, what is the slum upgrade plan for Nigeria? Because we know that at least 70%, 60 to 70% of urban residents are not living in planned areas. They are living in slums.
Yeah.
So if you have a majority of your population in urban areas living in slums, it tells you that there's a failure and something has to be done. So we are calling on government to ensure that there's a plan to eradicate slums. Countries have done it. Morocco has done it. I think Egypt has had large success to it. We can borrow from what they've done and improve our slums.
Thank you so much, Town Planner Samson Olusegun, for that enlightening. You really elaborated on the possible solutions from the government to the people. Awareness is very important for the people, and the government needs to plan. Thank you so much. You're even getting to my next question. I wanted to ask Town Planner Theophilus about examples of countries that have tackled these same challenges, and he has already started mentioning some of the countries.
Yeah.
So I would like for you to elaborate on that. So are there examples of cities, even in Nigeria or countries globally, that have tackled this crisis? And what lessons can the FCT and Abuja learn from these examples?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. I would like to come at this question at the angle of mitigation. We already know that this sewage already exists within this settlement. It's something that is already happening. So is to explore the best options in ameliorating its effects now, to see that the risk is not blown out of proportion. So one thing I can say is, if you look at this environment, what even makes the risk exacerbated is the congestion. When people are congested, it's kind of make them susceptible to the kind of diseases you see that emanates from having sewage within your environment. Now, there's one aspect that a lot of people usually don't look at much. They don't appreciate the role of nature when it comes to ameliorating these effects, trickling down this risk. I saw a research in Indonesia of a similar environment. What they did was something I would like to call biophilic acupuncture. That is where you have an environment where there are no greenery, no trees, and you now maybe identify 1 or 2 species within every square meter or so to have a green. Having a plant or greenery within your environment does a lot. It's not just for ornamental value. It does so much in purifying. It serves as a natural diffuser. So that was what this research in Indonesia did. They found out that settlements like this were having improved air quality after trees have been planted and so. And let me give you an example. If you look at Nigeria now, you see the kind of settlements. What we have as slums here is basically what we have in our villages. But why is it that if you look at the effects, it's more on the slum dwellers than those in the rural settlement?
Yeah.
Because if you look at the kind of houses, the ones in the rural settlements, you don't have toilets, you don't have kitchens. They usually do open defecation too. But one thing is clear: they are surrounded by greenery.
Yeah.
They are surrounded by trees, agriculture. They engage in agricultural activities. What those things do is that trees serve as air filters. Where you have trees, you find out that the air quality is being improved. And then if it's water, even when it comes to erosion, trees do a lot in mitigating erosion. And they can absorb some of these things that are being transported from sewage. Then is it the soil quality? Having trees also improves soil quality. So having vegetation around is something that does a lot, especially when they are being planted, not like having the vase, the flower vase, though it improves air quality, but it may not do the rest in terms of soil and water. So this is a solution that a lot of people underestimate besides that, we are looking at even what it can do for climate, improving. It reduces heat, moderating temperature. So if we can begin to have trees around, it can ameliorate some of these risks and some of these effects. And that is what you don't have in most slum environments, because you go around within 300 square meters or so, or even having a very large area, you may just be lucky to find only one tree. And where they even exist, some people even pull them down to accommodate more houses. So the congestion is really a huge problem, and I feel if people should begin to look at the benefits of having greenery around, it can trickle down these effects.
Thank you so much, Town Planner Theophilus. That was very enlightening. And thank you for giving us the example of the country Indonesia and how we can learn from that. It has been a very enlightening conversation, from the causes to the effects to the risk to possible solutions and to examples. I believe the viewers, as they are watching, they are able to learn a lot and be enlightened, and the government can listen to us and take some of the solutions and actually implement them. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of City Pulse. We've discussed the sanitation crisis in Abuja's informal settlements, the health risk it poses, and the role urban planning can play in resolving it. We hope this discussion has inspired you to advocate for better urban infrastructure in your communities. Now, here's a little thought to carry. The strength of any community lies in how it protects its most vulnerable members. Addressing issues like poor sewage systems in informal settlements is not just about solving a problem. It's about ensuring everyone has a fair shot at a healthy and dignified life. I am Obirabi Omubo. Thank you for watching. Do not forget to follow us on all social media platforms at Housing TV Africa and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Housing TV Africa. Bye for now.